And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. You're tuned in to Tapped Out. Hosted by Brendan Tobin and Sean Levine. Only on the BetQL Network.
And a good Saturday evening, and welcome into Tapped Out right here on the BetQL Network with my producer, Jake Noaker, and co-host Brendan Tobin. I'm the sports machine, Sean Levine, and UFC 300 is now in our rearview mirror, and we had one heck of a card and maybe one of the best knockouts that we've ever seen. Let's start right there, BT, because you called it, man. In the BMF fight, I thought Justin Gaethje was going to win. You said Max Holloway was going to win. You actually said Max Holloway was going to win by knockout, and it took him a while. 4 minutes, 59 seconds into the fifth round, but we got there. Since it was one of the biggest cards of all time, and in my opinion, the biggest fight on one of the biggest cards, and finished the way that it did, where does that rank amongst greatest fights, finishes at least, that we've ever seen?
Yeah, I mean, the finish is just an all-timer. I don't think I've ever had – it's been at least since Leon knocked out Kamaru. Like, my jaw's been on the floor like that. Different situations, obviously, because Max was clearly going to get the win, but the idea that – you know, he gave him the opportunity, a guy like Justin Gaethje, the opportunity to swing away, and he flatlines him. It was awesome. I mean, like you're talking about, you know, these guys are absolute fan favorites. It was the people's main event, and for it to end in just an awesome moment that really captured the sports weekend was really cool because it wasn't just, you know, combat fans. That really felt like it crossed over, and it's great for Max. You know, Max has been around forever, but I think that really is going to probably be his signature moment that everyone's going to remember.
What's gotten into Max Holloway? Because he's a guy that's been around since seemingly the Nixon administration, and a lot of victories, but most of them coming by way of decision. And now he's got these back-to-back knockouts, highlights, both of them, over the Zombie and Justin Gaethje. He's Mike Tyson all of a sudden.
Yeah, I mean, he's suckering people into this with this whole frenzy for 10 seconds. He's getting everybody lured in by like, oh, come on, you go out on your shield. Let's do this. And then like you never realize like, oh yeah, he's probably got some of the best hands in the sport from just a volume standpoint. And that's you're getting lured right into his buzzsaw. But look, man, he's been this good. Like you said, like it's great to see him now start to get some highlight reel moments. And he was magnificent in that fight, man, from not only the finish, but I mean, breaking Justin Gaethje's nose. I don't see many guys hit it from close range like that. That was just such an unbelievable weapon that he uncorked in that fight and really changed the trajectory of it from the first round on.
You mentioned when he broke Gaethje's nose. By the way, the fight we're talking about, the BMF, when Max Holloway knocked out Justin Gaethje, was one of 8 finishes. We had 13 fights on the card, and 8 of them were either by knockout or submission. You mentioned when Max broke his nose. Was there time left? Like I thought that I saw all zeros. It looked to me like the round was over.
You're saying like it was an illegal shot?
I mean, you know, you let those slide
borderline
a little bit, but damn, like that impacted the fight a lot.
It did impact the fight. I didn't think of that. In fact, I didn't even realize that it broke a nose because at first I was like, oh, that was like right to the body, but it caught the nose on the way in. I didn't see it until after the replay, and you could see that. You know, Gaethje was gushing blood, but yeah, man, it obviously was a huge impact, especially with knowing that, you know, Gaethje's had all those issues breathing in past fights before. That had to be a crushing start for that fight for him.
Yeah, remember like a year and a half ago, he said he hoped that somebody broke his nose in a fight so he could have the UFC insurance pay for the surgery, and then he went ahead and had the surgery anyway, and then Max broke his nose, so he can't be all too thrilled with that. Let's talk about what's next for both guys. First, the champion gets his spoils. That is the new BMF champion, Max Holloway. What's next? Because he's a guy that he's fought for the belt a bunch of times. Like I said, he's been around forever. We saw the trilogy with Alexander Volkanovski. What makes the most sense for the BMF champ?
I mean, really whatever he wants. I feel like he's the most in-demand guy right now who could call his shots. I think that if he wanted to go back down to featherweight and fight Topuria, he could, but you know, you would understand if they still want to do the right thing by Volkanovski. It'd be a little weird to like say, hey, Volkanovski, I know you got 3 wins over this guy, but we're going to delay you. I like him at lightweight. I think that this is an intriguing addition to the whole cycle because like we already know what the lightweight title is going to be. It's going to be Poirier versus Islam, and we'll get to that, I'm sure, later on in the show. But whomever wins that, like, be fun if he gets a chance to fight Islam. That's some fresh blood there. But Poirier and him obviously have a past. So who's going to say no to that fight? That'd be fun. And I guess he told reporters in Hawaii that the number one that he would love is to run it back with Conor. And I mean, if Conor's able to get by Michael Chandler, who wouldn't love that? So I really don't hate any of it. I think if you were to tell me, like, what would I love the most? Probably him and Poirier running it back. I mean, those guys are probably the two most fan-friendly guys in the sport. So if somehow Poirier...
I was going to say McGregor and Holloway would be amazing because, like you said, we saw it, but it was when both guys were absolute pups, right? That was Conor's second or third fight in the UFC. I mean, we're talking about a long, long time ago now. Obviously, both guys have had completely different career paths. It'd be a huge payday for Max Holloway, and they could put the BMF belt on the line. If Conor McGregor beats Chandler, to me, that's the one that makes the most sense if it all ends up playing out that way, but who knows what Conor McGregor we're going to see. Brendan Tobin, Sports Machine, Sean Levine, talking a little fighting here on Tapped Out. What's next for Gaethje? Because he's the now former BMF. Well, actually, once the BMF, you're always the BMF, right? I mean,
I think of it more as a club. Like it's once you're in, you're in.
I like that. Okay, so he doesn't have to give back his Heisman like Reggie Bush or anything like that. Like he stays in the club, he's still there, but he's not your current BMF. Okay, I get it. But what is next now for Justin Gaethje?
That's a good question. I mean, you know, you look at the lightweight division, you know, I'm sure if he wanted to, you know, go with Sarukian or something like that, he could if Sarukian doesn't want to wait out the title, but I think Sarukian's probably going to try and wait out the title. But he's you know, he's in an interesting spot right now. He's kind of done it there with everybody right now. So, and I don't know how many guys below him make sense. He's already done Fiziev. He's in a little bit of a weird spot right now. I think we'll find like that one of those matchups, you know, just kind of pops up out of nowhere. Maybe like he decides to go up a weight class and there'll be something there. Maybe, I don't know, I'm like looking at the rankings right now. I'm like, who makes sense for him? Like at welterweight, maybe like Jack Della Maddalena would be a fun fight if he were to want to come up. But lightweight right now, Sarukian's kind of the only one that really makes sense for him, I think, right now.
Are you bringing up his name multiple times on purpose? Like, are you trying to piss me off? Because you know that Arman Sarukian cost me a lot of money last Saturday night. We can just go ahead and go there. He won by split decision over Charles Oliveira. I've been barking into this microphone now since that fight got announced that I thought that Oliveira was going to win that fight. I emptied the piggy bank on it, and then I got pouty with you guys. I told you guys to stop texting me.
Really did.
And I apologize for that. Actually, I don't. Screw y'all too.
I mean, it was. I don't understand why though. Like he didn't. Like he almost got the win. Like I would be frustrated too.
In my ear, I got you ridiculing me on the ear. Let me tell you why. Because submissions matter. If you're the greatest submission artist of all time, we can't pretend like they don't. And I get it. Did he get beat up? Air quotes in the fight. Sure. Like if it was a boxing match. But it's not. That's why it's mixed martial arts. And I don't think that he got rewarded enough for, don't forget, I almost went nuts because at the very beginning of the fight, remember he jumped, that was at a guillotine early, like super early on. And I'm talking 30 seconds in, it was tight. And I was getting ready to celebrate and I was getting ready to go out and party. And then he let that one go. I still think he won the first round. Second round was definitely Sarukian. He beat him up in the second round. Third round, though, a little bit back and forth, mostly Sarukian. But at the very end of the fight, dude, my guy had him in a vice grip. He was about to rip his head right off of his neck. I'm sorry, but Oliveira won 2 out of 3 rounds. I know I'm in the minority here.
Well, I know, but you just sound like a guy who lost money over it. Like that's what it is. Like I get, like that's all it sounds like. He almost pulled it out. Like the first round, he had the submission attempt, but he also like controlled and you know had. You know, more of that. This one felt like the last one. I don't know. It just felt like more like a Hail Mary. And he almost looked like he pulled it off, but not enough to get the decision, my guy. I don't understand. Like I thought for you to call it a robbery was weird. Like, all right, if you want to say I just disagree, but you were heated. Like you sounded like,
you know, this is why we need to text back and forth because I wasn't ready to hear all this.
I know, but like I know. It's not only, but here's the thing. It's not only that you bet your money. You bet your money. I would say Charles Oliveira is probably like, I don't know. We've been doing the show. This is like our third season doing it. So I would say he's probably a top 3 fighter in my mind for you. Like I would say like
I got
Jose Aldo, Charles Oliveira, Tom Aspinall. I would say those are your guys. I would say like those are
now. Don't forget my boy Nate the Train, but all those
Nathan
guys
Train's
are
yet. But Nathan Train, I feel like Nathan Train's in like your minor league. Like these guys are, but those are like that's your stable right there, right? And so you're heated because your guy lost, and you're heated because you lost some dough. We've all been there, but no, man, I'm just telling you objectively because I lost money on it too. I'm just telling you objectively, no. I think Sarukian should have gotten the win.
If we would have had this conversation that night, we would no longer be friends. Like, I'm not willing to and now you're probably right. I can look back on it and say it wasn't a robbery. Maybe Charles Oliveira lost that fight. Maybe I was a little bit emotional, but you guys are still jerks. In the minor leagues, Nate the Train in the UFC. We're talking UFC here on the BetQL Network with producer Jake Noaker and my former friend and co-host Brendan Tobin. I'm the sports machine, Sean Levine. Good to have you along for the ride. All right, let's talk main event. Alex Pereira, knockout of Jamal Hill. Kind of weird because the referee like stepped in for a minute and then Jamal Hill got knocked out 30 seconds later. Am I a conspiracy theorist here? I mean, ultimately Pereira is probably going to end up winning the fight anyway.
No, I thought that was a crazy move. Like if you listen to the sound of it, like he like knocked him right in the cup, and Herb Dean was going to step in and give him his time, and like a stone cold assassin, Pereira like puts the hand up. Herb Dean's like, oh, never mind, and he just hits him with that left hand from the fight gods that Pereira has. It's just it's insane the kind of power that he has, and I got to be honest with you. That damn left hand cost me more money last week than because I had all of my parlays had Hill in them. I'm like, Jamal's gonna get this. Come on, Jamal. And my logic for it was
in my life. That makes me so happy.
I had almost just like, oh, come on, Jamal's coming back. That was his belt. I've seen this guy get knocked out by a middleweight. He's gonna be able to sweet dream him over. And then like he hits him with that left hand, and the eyes go right to the back of it. I was like, oh no. I lost 3 parlays on it. I was like, oh my God. I was so strong on Sweet Dreams. I should have sprinkled something on Pereira. No. Jamal Hill just like completely obliterated, and now Pereira's like, yep, this is solidified me as probably the scariest guy in the sport right now.
And Sweet Dreams goes BT's money, main event UFC 300 when Pereira knocks out Jamal Hill. So what's next for Pereira? I mean, we've already got champ. We've already got champ. Are we talking champ? I know you hate this stuff. You want him just to pick a division.
You know, you're right. That's normally the way I go. Here's the thing, though, and we've talked about this, you know, ad nauseum is man, 205 is such a weird weight class, right? Like it's got a bunch of old dudes, and he's already beaten Yuri. He's already beaten Jamal, so he's kind of beaten the most exciting guys. You have Ankalaev, you know, who definitely deserves probably the shot. And I would say out of anybody in this weight class, okay, give Ankalaev. But once he beats Ankalaev, I'm pretty fine with him jumping a heavyweight if he wants to go at Tom Aspinall. I mean, we're talking history. And I mean, quite frankly, this guy's got maybe the weirdest rise to stardom ever. Like this guy is a 34-year-old kickboxer, has taken over weight classes, has, you know, made some of the, you know, most deadly strikers in the sport look just like children against him. And if he really wants to do it, I'm not going to tell him. He's too scary.
It sucks, though, that John Jones dominated this division for as long as he did, stepped away, and now it's become so weird and kind of snake-bitten. Like, what if this was John Jones 5 years ago versus Pereira right now, both as light heavyweights? That's the matchup we've always wanted.
Yeah, it is. It's like that, you know, it's kind of the elusive like John Jones versus Rumble Johnson. Like we've always wanted to see John Jones against like the guy with the dynamite hands, the deadly knockouts, who's kind of his size. Right. And we never really hey, listen, maybe I wonder this, you know, John's sitting around here and clearly like Aspinall doesn't quite tickle his fancy and he wants to do the Stipe thing, but it really does feel like Pereira's coming. You know, he's becoming one of the stars of this sport, and maybe that is enough. We could possibly get something like that in a year's time if John's healthy enough. But He's wildly impressive, man. I mean, it looks like he barely has to graze you with that left hand, and you're donezo.
And he looks so cool both inside and outside the octagon. And when he does his arrow thing, that let's think about this sport that we love so much. A lot of it is how you talk. He doesn't even speak English, and he doesn't even give a damn. And he's become this popular because it's like it's mysterious. Peloton, Alex Pereira taking over the game right now. That is Brendan Tobin on the Sports Machine, Sean Levine. Coming up on the other side, we continue recapping the night. What was UFC 300 right here on Tapped Out.
We're back with more Tapped Out with Brendan Tobin and Sean Levine on the BetQL Network.
Tapped Out, rolling along right here on your radio. We appreciate you checking us out. That's BT, Brendan Tobin on the Sports Machine, Sean Levine, talking a little fighting and making a little money right here on the BetQL Network. We'll get to the Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney fight. We'll talk a little bit of boxing coming up later on in the show. But let's keep recapping what we saw last Saturday night at UFC 300. We talked about the Holloway knockout of Gaethje and the Pereira knockout of Jamal Hill. Bo Nickel, I got that one right. I told you it would take a little bit of time. He ended up winning in the second round over Cody Brundage. And then Bo Nickel booed himself, gave himself the double thumbs down. I didn't think that was necessary. I mean, this dude obviously has super high expectations for himself.
Yeah, he does. I kind of get it. Like, it wasn't the most thrilling. You know, he was never really in danger. It wasn't the most thrilling performance. And I think he knows that there was some criticism of him being on the main card too. So there's part of me that kind of gets it from Bo Nickel, but I'm not going to criticize him. I think that it was a fine performance. I think the thing with him, man, is just like, I want to see, I just want to see how active he's going to be over these next few months and see how much we're going to see him in the cage. Cause he gets in there. I'm sure he has very hard training camps and he's training like a demon for these fights, but I'd like to see that record, start to get up there to a point where we're going to see him against some serious guys.
Yeah, but that's not on him. That's been his problem the whole time with the UFC is even when he was trying to break into it, it was like, all right, we need to see you again on the Contender Series. And then he said he wants to fight this guy and that guy. And I feel like they're making him wait. I get it. Maybe a little bit of a slow roll makes sense, kind of like Sean O'Malley, and then boom, fight all these names that we've heard of. To me, Bo Nickel's there. Like, if his next fight was versus Khamzat Chimaev, I don't think he'd be outclassed.
I don't think so either. I think a lot of people, especially the guys who do train with him at ATT and have known about his credentials, think that, yeah, he's going to be a problem for a lot of people. I think just now is a problem, but I think it's just one of these things where right now, what do you do with him as far as like the promotion? Because normally, like, all right, the next slow roll is, do you keep him on pay-per-views like they did with Sean and, keep him a part of those because you don't really know how long his fights are going to be? Because I don't think you want to make him a main event if you feel like every fight's going to be 30 seconds or a minute, or
that's a good point.
Maybe it'll get to a second round. But I think we know, like, hey, all these guys who are like, below him but are young or have a little bit more experience, he's better than and it is good enough to beat. So I think it's high time that we find him some ranked guys and see what he can do against them.
And certainly not as flashy or charismatic as Sean O'Malley. So doesn't have that going for him. And as you said, a wrestler and the fights finish fast. All right, it makes sense why maybe Bo Nickel, we see him not as frequently as you and I would like to. Your Prochazka, what a fun fight that was. Ends up knocking out Alexander Rakic in the second round. I love fights like that because you could kind of see it coming. Like, Rakic was really good in round one, but then he started to slow down. And then once Yuri started connecting with a few of those shots, it's like the old Street Fighter video game. You could kind of see his life, on the top of the screen, just dying slowly right in front of you. And then eventually got knocked out. Your Prochazka is still a problem.
Yeah, he's fun, man. I mean, like, he's a wild man. Everybody was like looking at, him and wondering, all right, is this guy, you're taking on Rakic. The only question about him was, coming off of a long layoff, but he's very, very dangerous and he's lighting up Yuri Prochazka's leg, but Prochazka's not really like showing any effects of it. And then just like kind of just throws all caution to the wind, kitchen sink. It's what everybody likes about him. He burst onto the scene right away. His only issue is, all right, is he going to get right back in there to get a crack again at the title? There's not really, Ankalaev's really the only guy who's got a claim at it besides him right now. But I think, like, if you're talking about pleasing fights, if Pereira does stay at 205, I mean, him and Yuri is super fun, even though they've done it already. Who's going to say no to seeing that fight again? Whereas Ankalaev, it's a bit of more of a coin toss on whether he's going to bring you the entertainment factor.
Yuri said he wants the rematch versus Pereira, and I would be definitely down for that one. It was a second round submission in her UFC debut for Kayla Harrison over Holly Holm. Holly clearly toward the end of her game, even though I guess she did just re-up her contract, so she will be around still in the octagon for a while. That was pretty much what I expected to see from Kayla Harrison.
Yeah, she looked great. The big thing, I think people were probably more worried about her making the weight than they were her winning the fight. I think we all felt really good about her winning the fight. Holly could be a little bit weird and squirrely because, you know, how light she is on her feet. And so if you can't get your hands on her, maybe that'll make for an ugly night. But Kayla's a beast, man. I mean, this is what everybody has said about her. And now that we know she can make 135, though it did look like a bit of a struggle, you know, she has made changes to make it, I guess, a better, safer weight cut. And man, I mean, how mad could you be about it? Because, you know, we've been talking about the women's division being a little bit lackluster, and then all of a sudden she has that performance, and who comes a knocking? That's the GOAT. Because Amanda Nunes, she was very intrigued, and I'm very intrigued by this dude because it's like, hey, all of a sudden Amanda Nunes, who backstory, trained an American Top Team for many a years. She was the queen. She was the GOAT. Then Kayla Harrison starts walking around. She's getting $1 million paydays in the PFL. And, man, all of a sudden not at American Top Team. She's like, bleep this. I'll put my own cage in a garage somewhere in Boca. Bring in my coaches. I'll do it myself. I'll bring in my training partners. But she didn't want to be part of that circle anymore. So there's definitely something there, dude. Like there is some kind of backstory that the powers that be inside those walls aren't ready to reveal yet. But man, this is juicy. Like if Kayla Harrison can get the bantamweight championship and we can get the return of the GOAT itching to come back there, I'm telling you, man, that is going to be a hell of a buildup because I am dying to know what all the backstories are between them.
Dana White would back a Brinks truck up to Amanda Nunes' house to get her back. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Dana almost needs Amanda Nunes to come back. What other women's fight right now could headline a pay-per-view? Obviously, this one would be ginormous. If you talk about Amanda Nunes versus Kayla Harrison, everybody would be watching. But you look right now, and we'll get to the Zhang Weili win over fellow countrywoman Yan Xiaonan. It was a fine fight. It didn't finish by some crazy knockout or anything like that. I mean, Rose is toward the end of her game. We don't have Joanna Jędrzejczyk. We don't have Ronda Rousey anymore, right? Like you mentioned, Misha Tate's name isn't as big as it once was. Same thing with Holly Holm, Valentina gone. Like it's the game needs women's superstars. I would say, remember Ronda Rousey when they first started, that was named the champion right away. So they had like a women's superstar right away. And they've had one the entire time since. At times, Amanda was the biggest fighter in the game. So was Ronda. Rose was as popular as anybody. What I'm trying to tell you is they almost need Amanda to come back.
Well, yeah, but for now, I think it's okay that she's looming. You know, I think the idea that, you know, she's interested in Kayla Harrison.
That's what they do. Stalking.
Yeah. That is what they do. That is how they stalk their. But I think the idea that she could be interested in coming back is just enough to put the intrigue on Kayla. Because it's no disrespect to Rocky. Like, Rocky Pennington's been in the sport forever. It's great. She's got her belt. That's a great story. You know, she's not the most thrilling fighter of all time. And so just the idea of Kayla pursuing the belt, getting that throne, but Amanda kind of always on the outskirts. Yeah, it's got a lot of juice to it, and I think it adds a little bit more because if Kayla is able to get the championship and then there's actually the chance that we'll get her to see her fight the GOAT, it's like, all right, this is going to be this is going to be doubly great because we'll now get to find out, all right, who is the real person there. And they probably know. I'm sure that there's been rounds they've either gone together or people who have done spar with both. You know, speaking at some people with ATT, they say, like, you know, that it's pretty obvious where the advantages are for each person. But, you know, this is usually a grappling sport, and the people who have the grappling advantage, they think that will probably give them the edge. But, man, I never pick anybody to beat Amanda Nunes. I don't care how good Kayla Harrison is or how big Kayla Harrison is. That's like picking John Jones to lose. I can't do it.
Not going to do it. Can't do it. He won't do it. That's Brendan Tobin and me, the sports machine, Sean Levine, with you talking a little fighting here on the BetQL network. Which knockout did you like more at 300? Diego Lopez over Super Sadiq Youssef, or when Renato Moicano knocked out Jalen Turner after Jalen Turner thought he had already knocked out Renato Moicano earlier in the fight?
Well, I like Diego Lopez. I liked his win better just because, like, he looks like he's really on the up and up, and he's going to be.
He's scary.
Yeah, he looks scary. I like but just like from an entertainment standpoint, Renato Moicano, Money Moicano's resurgence into this character is just so great. And yeah, he snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. It looked like he was going to be Dunzo. Jalen Turner, who I bet on. I thought I was furious. Finish him, it was frustrating, but Moicano's been a dog, man. He's been on a hell of a run. Great week for ATT, man.
Nothing worse than when you bet on a guy and you bet on him, especially by knockout, and he gives the guy the one-hitter quitter, puts it right on the button, and the guy goes down, and then your fighter raises his hands, even though the fight's not over with. And then the fight goes on and your fighter loses. It's like, dude, all you need to do is jump on him. He was done. He was a fish out of water. It's kind of like, not as much, but the Nate Diaz-Leon fight. Like, Nate popped him and then pointed to him and started laughing. It's like, dude, there's only a minute left. I got a lot of money on you. Punch that guy in the face again, please. You told me that Cody was going to beat Davison Figueiredo to open the card, and so I put a little bit of money on that one. And that didn't happen. Right. Figueiredo ended up subbing Cody. So Cody's chances at a belt now are in his rearview mirror, and I'm sorry to apologize. I got to apologize to you because that's your guy, right? Like him and Wonder Boy.
I like him.
Got a soft spot for certain fighters. Talking about, maybe he's going to fight for the belt again one day. No, he's not at this point. But Davison Figueiredo might.
He might. I mean, he might. He gets the. There's been questions about what's he going to be like when he gets up there into this weight class, and it's a really, really tough weight class, 135, to crack and make an impression on. I mean, you think about all the people that, Sean O'Malley's got to go through, and Davidson jumped up to 6 this week in the rankings. So, he's knocking on the door of contention right there with everybody. And, after Sean fights Merab, and I would say probably Corey Sandhagen is next. Petr Yan's getting some things right. But, if maybe he finds somebody there that he likes, he can get back going. Maybe him versus Cheeto. If Cheeto wants a get right fight, maybe that's a good matchup. But yeah, nice win for him, man. I do feel bad for Cody. Cody came out this week and said he had vertigo. I don't even know what that's like. What the hell is vertigo? Is that like a heights thing? I don't know. Like he said, like,
isn't vertigo like, doesn't it do something with your equilibrium? Or are we just trying to put doctors number? Okay.
I don't know. I don't know what vertigo is. But he said that he got it in the middle of the fight, which
definitely not.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's helpful for you.
No, it's not. So 8 of the 13 fights at UFC 300, as we just talked about, finished by either knockout or submission. The other 5, there were some fun ones in there. Bobby Green over Jim Miller. We saw Jessica Andrade over Marina Rodriguez. We saw Aljamain Sterling over Calvin Kattar. We already talked about Arman Sarukian over Charles Oliveira. And then the Wei Li versus Yan Xiaonan fight. Did you win or lose any money in the co-main event?
No, I had Wei Li. I lost money on that, but not too much. But I had Wei Li by sub on that one. And so obviously I was very upset at the end of the first round because I thought that she got her. And then Yan Xiaonan goes back to her stool, and I don't know what the dude was like, putting his finger up her nose or something like that to revive her. That was pretty crazy. And so weird. Somehow she was able to get back out there. She looked pretty good. She's a dog, man. I mean, it was a fun fight. The thing that, and everybody has made this point, I'm not saying anything original. The thing that's tough is like you're following that fight after following maybe the moment of the year with Max Holloway, Justin Gaethje. So that was the only thing that was tough for those ladies, because I do think that they put on a really entertaining bout.
Performance of the night, of course, 300,000 bonuses to all the performance winners for UFC 300. Went to Yuri Prochazka, no problem with that. Fight of the night, no surprise, that was the BMF. That was Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway. Gaethje now, I want to say, has gotten a bonus in every single UFC fight that he's been in except for one. Like, even when he loses, he still gets a bonus because that's just how impressive he is inside that octagon. Max gets the double bonus, right? So Max ends up getting $600,000 on top of his show, on top of his pay. Max is going to make a big, big paycheck for UFC 300, and you love to see it. We talked about what could be next for him. Obviously, a longtime fan favorite. I would love to see him get another crack at Conor McGregor. Even if he gets another crack at Dustin Poirier, whatever's next for Max, it looks like he's put himself in a great spot. All right, coming up on the other side, now that 300 is in the books, we've got a lot of awesome fights on the cards, and I've got some winners picked for you. I'll break it down next right here on the BetQL Network.
Step into the cage with Brendan Tobin in Are You Gonna Fight Me?
I'm gonna fight your ass!
Here on Tapped Out.
That's right, fight me like a man.
Only on the BetQL network.
You know the rules. I want a good, clean fight. When I tell you to break, I want you to step back up my command and break. Now go back to the corner and come out fighting at the bell.
Welcome back into the show. We appreciate you checking us out this Saturday night. Brendan Tobin, Sports Machine Sean Levine on your radio. And since we can't seem to get along, let's get it on. Segment's called You Gonna Fight Me. Ronda Rousey says that she's the best female fighter of all time. You gonna fight me if I say I don't even have her in my top 5. I got Nunes, Cyborg, Valentina, Joanna Jacek, my love, and Wei Lee. That's my top 5. You gonna fight me?
Yeah, I mean, I think she's got arguments over Wei Lee. Like, man, I do think that Ronda's importance to the sport and how dominant she was before she lost does get lost because of how it ended a little bit.
Yeah.
She's not the greatest female fighter of all time. There's very few things that are undebatable. Amanda Nunes is the best female fighter of all time. Any other arguments are stupid. Even if Kayla comes and beats her in her twilight, it's a stupid argument. Like, she's the best. Amanda Nunes is the best female fighter of all time, but I would put Ronda in my top 5. If I had to bounce somebody for you, probably Wei Lee or Chris.
When you talk about importance, I think she's on the Mount Rushmore of not just women fighters, of UFC fighters all time. Like, for how popular she was, what she did for the women's game. But if you just want to talk about her actual skill set, a little bit limited with all the arm bars. She only had, 12-something fights inside the octagon. There weren't a lot of them. Look at some of these other careers, like Amanda, Valentina.
But getting upset with getting upset with Ronda Rousey for being limited when she had the most dominant move in the sport for 3 years is like getting mad at Conor McGregor for knocking out every featherweight with his left hand. You know, like,
yeah, but what
if you couldn't stop, but if you couldn't stop it, like, who cares? Like, why do you have to learn anything else? And then, to be fair, like, look, she was beating some Tibet like Betchkahea with her hands, and that's probably the worst thing. That's probably the worst night that ever happened to her because she thought, oh, I could strike with people when she couldn't. But that armbar, dude, like the numbers of ways she would find that armbar on people when she did the Katzengano, like just off the break inverted, like, yeah, she was something special when it came to not only like how dominant she was. I mean, a little bit like, you know, everybody sitting here, you're fawning over Bo Nickel. Like, that was kind of Ronda. It's like, how long is this going to last before she's able to throw somebody into an armbar and submit them?
Yeah, but Bo Nickel he came on our show and he talked about how much he trains with striking because he knows how good of a wrestler that he already is. You mentioned Conor McGregor in the comparison to Ronda Rousey. That's a perfect comparison. Both absolute superstars, both shot out the gate like a cannon. Everybody loved them. Both, when you talk about importance to UFC, on that Mount Rushmore, but also both one-trick ponies. And what happened? They both kind of faded away. Like, that's what happens when you don't advance your skill set at the best mixed martial arts level inside the octagon. Like, this is not, if you were at a different level and you were Ronda Rousey, you keep winning forever. But what happened once she lost? She lost again. What happened to Conor McGregor? He never defended the belt. So, like, that's the problem is, are they fun to watch? Are they highlights? Are they memorable? Yeah. Are Conor McGregor or Ronda Rousey an all-time great? I really don't think so. Very, very good, and I sound disrespectful. I don't have them as all-time great. I'm talking about top 5 fighters in the promotion. I don't have either one of them. I know Conor's
like, all right, if you
love Conor McGregor, greatest featherweight of all time.
I mean, that is a true statement, but you know, that's his run to the title at featherweight was incredible, and I'm sorry that he beat your King of Rio and became the King of Rio, but he did that. I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't know what to tell you, but you know, I just think that with Ronda, yeah, it was different. She obviously did not handle losing very well. It's not a great trait from her, but it doesn't take up just because she was a bad loser doesn't take away with how special her winning was before she lost. You know, like, I feel like she gets graded down on people because she is a sore loser, and that takes away from how special her wins were and how important to the sport she was. And like, it's kind of stupid. Like, who cares how you
No, it's
win,
not,
whether you're
because
graceful or whether you're a
she's
sore
the
loser?
source
Who
loser.
cares?
She's the
Yeah,
source of all losers.
she is a sore loser. But you want to know something?
Oh,
How you
what?
lose doesn't impact whether or not you're a good fighter or not. It just means you're a terrible, like, you just have bad qualities outside of the ring of graciousness. But who cares? Like, it doesn't mean you're a better fighter or not a better fighter. Like, you could shake the hand of somebody who kicked your ass. You still got your ass kicked.
Okay. She says she's the greatest winner of all time. I know she's the greatest loser. I can tell you that much. Brendan Tobin, Sports Machine, Sean Levine here on the BetQL Network. We've talked a lot about Max Holloway. Unbelievable highlight knockout of Justin Gaethje in the BMF fight at UFC 300. You're going to fight me if I say, if he gets a crack at Alexander Volkanovski for a fourth time, I think Max should be favored to win the fight.
Why?
Have you seen Volk in the last calendar year? Have you seen Max in the last calendar year?
Dude, they've had 3 fights. What are you talking about? They fought 3 times. Volkanovski's beaten the brakes off of him worse every time they fought. It's the silliest thing I've heard. If he was, you know how fat, and I love Max Holloway. I love Max Holloway. I don't think, other than Robbie Lawler, I don't think anybody we've had on this show has given me the goosies more than Max Holloway. Like, the dude I legit look upon as a legend.
We're having Jorge Masvidal on the show later on today, right? Just bringing that up.
And I don't mean to be jaded on that, but I've interviewed him 1,000 times. But the point is, Max Holloway, dude, is one of the greats. However, Volkanovski beat the holy hell out of him the last time they fought. And it's like, what is Max gonna do? Volkanovski has the blueprint to beat this guy. You're basically like, oh, hey, Volkanovski, you want to fight Max Holloway again? Yeah, sure. Like, it would be such an, I would run so fast if you told me that Volkanovski was an underdog against Max Holloway to bet Volk.
Jake, is your microphone working right now? I feel like we need like another observer for this one. Can you chime in on this?
What's up?
Am I crazy? Am I crazy to think, this is producer Jake Noaker, by the way. Am I crazy to think that based on the last calendar year, when Max Holloway is knocking out everybody he fights, and Alexander Volkanovski is getting knocked out by everybody he fights, that if we saw that fight in a few months, full training camp, that Volk should maybe be the underdog in the fight? Is that crazy?
It's crazy to think he should be the underdog going in. Is it crazy to think that Max maybe pulls this one out because of some recent circumstances? No. But yeah, no, dude, come on. Volk's going to be like a minus 250 at least.
Yeah, I'm thinking that. And the public's thinking that. Why would the Vegas odds not tell us as much? Pick him. It'd be a pick 'em fight.
Because he's lost to him 3 times. He's lost to him 3 times.
All right. Current events, by the way, is the subject. Apparently, you're still in history class because that was now a while ago. I'd love to see it. Would you like to see it? You don't want to see Max fight Volk again? I want to see it.
I would be down for it. I would be down. I mean, like, look, you're never going to be mad at Max for not getting it, but I kind of want to see him fight Topuria because Topuria is sounding like a little bit of a spoiled brat. I got to be honest with you. I feel like the old man, Max Holloway, the daddest man alive, needs to go out there and teach him a little something, you know? Like, it's like, hey, Topuria, you've just gotten here, dude. You know, first you're like, oh, I'm going to jump weight classes, and I want it in Spain, and I want the BMF. Dude, no disrespect, but Max Holloway has stolen the year. You'll do, like, if that was Conor McGregor, like, it's like, you'll do what you're told. Max Holloway can tell you what he wants to do. And quite frankly, like, if they were to fight on separate fights, whatever, let's just say on a given night, you have Topuria and Max Holloway. They're not fighting each other. Max Holloway would be the main event, not Topuria. Get the holy hell out of here. Have some respect.
You'll do what you're told. Love that line. Mike Perry says that he's been talking with the UFC, and the UFC has said back to him that he can't beat anyone in the top 5 of his division. I probably agree with that when you look at it. I say it's still worth re-signing Mike Perry to the UFC. You're going to fight me? Like, if you're ever going to bring somebody back, even knowing that he's a mediocre fighter, that's the guy.
I mean, dude, there's so many fight nights. Like, yeah, of course. Like, why not
Right?
have just a Mike Perry fight night? Like, who can't use a Mike Perry for a main event one week? Like, yeah, absolutely. Like, it doesn't have quite the same barrier that it used to for certain fight nights. But he's, to be fair, you know, I don't know what he's getting paid at BKFC, But I do feel like for him, you know, to be this big fish in a much smaller pond in a sport that just seems perfect for him is great. I think he's built for it. I think that, you know, all the guys, the retreads who are going to come over there and see if they can beat him and he can beat there, I think that's kind of cool for his legacy. I do feel like if he comes to UFC, you have to match him up against certain guys. You have to make him strikers matches. And yeah, they're probably right. He's not a top 5 fighter.
Forbes magazine released their list of most valuable combat sports out there, and AEW is worth $2 billion. WWE is worth around $7.5 billion. UFC came in at $11.3 billion. So this sport we love so much, they're doing something right, guys. You're going to fight me if I say Dana White is going to be around for at least another decade.
Not going to fight you because he seems very keen on this. What am I going to do what am I going to do if I retire? Like it felt like maybe when there were new ownership coming in that was more of a thing, that he was possibly going to be done. Doesn't feel like he's going anywhere. He's kind of mastered too, like how to do media in this day and age as well, with the podcast that he goes on or just using his own social media. He doesn't really need to do it the way he used to do it. I see no reason why he has to leave, or unless it's by his choice and he gets really obsessed with the dumbass power slap.
It's not fun. We saw Israel Adesanya in the crowd, and most recently in the octagon, losing to Sean Strickland. You're going to fight me if I say, looking back on it, that was just Sean Strickland's best night, and he'll never fight for a title again.
I'm going to fight Sean, never fight for a title again, because never's a very long time. But I get what you're saying as far as like, did he just have his best night at the office that night? Maybe a la a Cody Garbrandt against Dominic Cruz, and he's never going to get back to that.
Absolutely. That's exactly what came to mind. Like, he was so good every single round. He beat him up, and he's just not really that guy. 1 hour in the book. One more hour coming up right here on the BetQL Network.
We're back with more Tapped Out with Brendan Tobin and Sean Levine on the BetQL
Hour
Network.
number 2, round number 2 of Tapped Out here on the BetQL Network with Brendan Tobin. I'm the sports machine, Sean Levine. This is a big hour, so keep your radio locked in right here. We're going to talk some future UFC fights this segment. Then we're going to talk about the big boxing match coming up later on tonight. That is Devin the Dream Haney versus King Ryan Garcia. Some props we like. Does Ryan Garcia get knocked out? Are the odds way too much in Devin Haney's favor? And then Jorge Masvidal will join the show before we get out of here. So big final hour this Saturday night. Speaking of big, announced at UFC 300, Conor McGregor is going to be coming back officially at UFC 303 BT, taking on Michael Chandler. Before we talk about the odds and the fight and all that, it seems like it paid off for Michael Chandler just to kind of wait in the weeds and wait for that big payday.
Yeah, it certainly did. You feel good because it did feel like there was some times where maybe somebody else was going to weasel in there. Does Conor even feel like he's coming back? So definitely happy for Michael Chandler. You know, good dude who has been a very, very entertaining UFC fighter, even though he hasn't had the cleanest record since coming to the UFC. Every one of his fights has been entertaining, just like he was in Bellator. And so you think about all those years as the face of Bellator, maybe not necessarily all these people seeing you, even though you've had classics. Now he gets to have the red panty night against Conor McGregor. It paid off for him, and I can't wait for it, man. It's going to be a very, very interesting matchup, especially since it seems like he's going to have to give up some size on it.
Dude, I once watched Michael Chandler fight in Bellator in an octagon that was right outside the bar in Kansas City that I was at. Like, I'm not making this up. I was at the bar. I had a couple of pops. I went outside. I didn't even know the event was happening. And they were like, hey, you like fights, right? I was like, sure. I saw Michael Chandler knock some dude out, and then here we are. That had to be a decade ago, and Michael Chandler gets his shot at the great Conor McGregor. Dare I say, I don't think Conor has much of a chance, dude. Like right now, Conor is basically a pick 'em fight at BetMGM. You get McGregor at -115, Chandler at -105. I think even if you told me that Conor McGregor, by the way, the last time we saw him, his ankle was on sideways, is going to come back healthy, I still think he's old. I still don't think he's in his prime. And I think that the way that he used to fight was a lot like Michael Chandler fights now, which is with a bit of reckless abandon, where if these guys meet in the middle of the octagon and lower their heads, I think Michael Chandler just knocks them out. It could be done in one.
He's just such a dog, Michael Chandler.
Violent.
Yeah, but though very violent. I mean, like, look, he's been in there with his UFC run. Yeah, he's 2-3. His wins definitely are against the least impressive guys at Dan Hooker and Tony Ferguson. He obviously had that crazy Tony Ferguson knockout where he rearranged Tony's face. Not nice. Almost had Dustin Poirier, but Poirier pulled out that win. Him and Gaethje was an absolute classic. Fight of the year. And Charles Oliveira. So he's had a pretty good strength of schedule, but everyone where he's like, it's every time he's had to step up to like the SEC, you know, he hasn't been able to come up. So, but I don't know what you consider Conor. I don't know what conference he is. He's almost like, you know, it almost reminds me, sadly, you know what it reminds me of? Conor's a lot like the Miami Hurricanes. You know, he's a brand, but he really hasn't been relevant in a long time. And it pains me to say, Sebastian, it pains me to say that, buddy. It pains me to say that.
But Sebastian
you know,
Ibis, one of the greatest bird mascots out there behind the Jayhawk. But yeah, Miami and Conor McGregor is a great comparison.
Yeah, and you got the same colors too, Ireland and the Canes, you know, orange, green, and white. Like he's a little bit like them.
Super cocky,
both
talk a lot.
You know, both, I mean, just, you know, probably overpaid with their coach right now. And, you know, and so look, obviously for the sport, would it be great for Conor to come back and hit that sweet left hand and he gets to, you know, say the king is back and then everything opens up. The Max Holloway fight comes back and, you know, maybe he fights for the welterweight title. You know, he fights Leon Edwards or whoever. Everything opens up for him if he can get a win against a Michael Chandler. It's a quality opponent. But like you said, I mean, man, Michael Chandler's been active. He still is very dangerous. Also, he's got wrestling that he could go to if he wanted in that bag of tricks to wear Conor out. I just don't see where it is outside of if he doesn't get him in the first round and you know, steamroll him, feel like he's in for a very, very long night.
maybe one more comparison if I can. Every
Mm.
year, the U has that number next to their name at the beginning of the season. I'm like, why are they ranked number 12? They don't deserve that. And then a few games in, it's gone. Conor McGregor probably shouldn't have a number next to his name at this point. You know what I mean? Like let's see what he is when he comes back, and then maybe we can talk about what he used to be. But at this point, he's just kind of another guy. UFC 302. Actually, I have one more question about that Chandler versus Conor McGregor fight. Do you think that as many eyeballs are still going to be on Conor McGregor as there were last time we saw him in the octagon 3 years ago? Do you still think that he is the biggest fighter in the promotion when he steps into the cage?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no question. He's with Floyd Mayweather not really fighting, he's still the biggest combat athlete on the planet. Doesn't mean he's the best, but by far the biggest. I mean, dude, I watched stupid Roadhouse reboot just because of him. Like, we're fascinated by him. When he was punching Bernie the mascot during the NBA Finals, couldn't keep my eyes off him in a velvet suit, and my favorite basketball team was playing for the championship. Like, there's just something about Conor. He's crossed over. We're all very interested in him. Sometimes even, we're like, we're cringing. He's kind of like the closest thing MMA's got to Tyson. Like, it's like you're going to be fascinated with everything that happens to him. Even, if he's fighting a YouTuber at 60, from 30 years from now.
He might be. UFC 302 is now just a couple of months away. The main event, Dustin Poirier versus Islam Makhachev. So everybody on this show made a bunch of money on Dustin Poirier the last time when he fought Benoit Saint-Denis. We talked about it. We said, what are we doing here? Why is Dustin a 2-1 underdog? Is BetMGM crazy? We said Dustin's going to finish him. All those things happen, which is why you should listen to the show. I'm going to say all those things again, even though we're a couple of months away from the fight. Islam's great. I understand why he's the pound-for-pound number one UFC fighter. There is no way in the world he should be a minus 450 favorite against Dustin Poirier. Poirier is plus 350 in this fight. And we know that Poirier loves to jump that guillotine and tries to sub fighters, and this could be a fight that's on the ground. Dustin Poirier will still knock your ass out. Ask Benoit Saint-Denis. This makes no sense. Like, this is one of those fights where you better get in on Dustin Poirier right now because you have to think this number is going to close by fight night.
Yeah, and the thing that's going to be interesting with Islam, too, is, does Islam feel a little froggy right now? Like, everybody, he's not Khabib in that, like, Khabib is going to go in there every single fight, and he's going to grab the one leg, and he's going to trip you, and he's going to hold you against the cage, and he's going to hold your arm back. Like, with getting the head kick over Volkanovski, is he feeling a little bit like, I could show you what I got. I got some TKO. I got some hands. Because if he tries to throw with Dustin Poirier, that could be a dangerous game. We saw with Benoit, because Benoit Saint-Denis had a great first round against Dustin Poirier, and made Poirier think about some things, and then got a little cute, and Poirier can turn the lights out just like that. Doesn't take very much. There is a path to beat Dustin Poirier. If you keep it a grappling game and, you want to slow roll it, like, you could probably find at one point that neck and find a way to choke him out. But I think the one thing with Poirier, man, he just is a wild card right now. Like, he's not listening to his coaches. I mean, I'm sure if I have conversations with Dia Davis and they're sitting there and be like, please stop jumping the gate, Gilly, please, Dustin. And he's not going to listen because he's just like, he's an old man now and he doesn't want to listen to his coach. He's going to do what he wants.
And because of that, I know that he's your guy, and I know you're tight with his boxing coach, Dia Davis. If he was to win that fight and get the belt this late in his career, he might lay down the gloves. I know the Diamond says that he wants to keep fighting, but if he wins that fight, that might be it. What a way to go out.
It'd be so cool. It'd be so cool to have everything that he's done in this career. And if he were to actually be able to get that, I'm glad that, there was some questions about taking that Benoit Saint-Denis fight. And Dana White was obviously very impressed with him. And that's why he's getting this almost this fast pass back to the belt, because I'm sure Sarukian sitting here. I mean, that whole thing about Sarukian saying like, "Oh, I got offered that night the fight," and they said you got to be ready by June 1st. Like, I don't blame Sarukian for not wanting to, jump right into a title fight. I think he's got the credentials to wait it out, but I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm more interested in seeing Dustin Poirier fight for the belt than I would Sarukian versus Islam. It just is what it is.
Well, Sarukian was probably flustered that he won that fight. He was like, "What? I can't believe they called my name. Everybody knows damn well Charles Oliveira won 2 rounds, but we must move on.
And also,
Sean
just like
Strickland,
can any of us in good conscience just pass up the opportunity to? It was like it's just like the Volkanovski fight, the second one. It's like, can any of us in good conscience really pass up 3-1 odds on Dustin Poirier? You gotta take it. You gotta sprinkle something on Dustin.
almost 4-1, sitting right now at plus 350 at BetMGM for Dustin to take out Islam. Also, you can get pretty good odds on Paulo Costa if you think he can take out Sean Strickland at UFC 302. I thought this fight should be a lot closer to a pick'em. Sean Strickland all of a sudden gets these crazy odds in his favor. I said earlier on the show that I don't want to say he's overrated. He's a friend of the show. We had a really fun interview with him when he came on. I like Sean Strickland as a person, as a fighter, but I also think that we saw him in a perfect fight against Israel Adesanya, and not everybody, a lot of people think that's who he is. What I'm trying to tell you is I think Costa's going to win this fight, and I think he knocks him out. I think they stand and bang in this fight.
Nah, I agree with the odds. I think that Strickland, first of all, that fight against Dricus du Plessis, like he didn't win, but it was close.
It was.
I think that was one of those where I think I was a little salty, having some money on Strickland that night. But just Costa, I just don't trust him. Like he's very talented and he's obviously very entertaining and he looks like an action figure and all that stuff, but I still just don't trust him. Like overall, this is a guy.
He's got a lot of Johnny Walker in him, not the liquor, the fighter, doesn't he? Everything you just said.
Like, look, his only win over the last 4 years was over Luke Rockhold at the end of it, and that was a weird fight.
Really?
Yeah, like he's lost to Whitaker. I mean, it's good competition. I mean, he's fighting Adesanya and Vettori and Whitaker, and he's got that win over Rockhold. And then before that, in 2019, he had the weird fight with Yoel Romero. But yeah, I think Sean Strickland is, with how active he's been in main events, he's been at the championship level. I'll probably bet him to win by decision so I can get better odds on it that night. But I think that it's an appropriate line for Sean Strickland that night.
I can't believe that Costa's only win in the last few years is that, remember he was rubbing the blood of Luke Rockhold. You turned into your daughter Sophia all of a sudden. Ew, gross blood. It's like,
that
dude,
was so
he
gross.
covers
Yeah,
this sport for a living. You're crazy. That was
dude,
awesome.
He motorboated him with blood. That was disgusting. You're a savage if you like that.
Oh, I loved it. I didn't like it. I loved it. UFC 301 leaves a little bit to be desired, if we're just going to call it what it is. But that's what happens after the greatest card of all time. You got Pantoja Usyk. You got my boy Jose Aldo Jr. versus Jonathan Martinez. You got Lionheart Smith versus Vitor Petrino. Who do you think has more gas left in the tank at this point in the career? Would it be Lionheart Smith or would it be Jose Aldo? Both guys obviously nearing the end of their career.
Yeah, I'd go Jose. I mean, first of all, what is Jose? Probably like, what is he? Jose Aldo is 37. I think we all probably think that he's 43.
I was gonna say 45, dude. He's only 37.
Yeah, no, like
really?
Yeah, like he's still capable, man. I mean, like he just lost to Merab was his last loss a couple years ago, so he hasn't been in the cage in a while. So I mean, like Merab's gonna fight for the belt. There's no shame in that. Before that, he was on a 3-fight win streak. Anthony Lionheart Smith's it's been some hard times for him, man. He's he's lost and he's lost some brutal ones. Like that last one to Khalil Roundtree was a tough one. And Ankalaev got him. The Ryan Spann fight was very, very controversial too. So he's been on some hard times. If I had to pick one guy to still have a lot left in the tank, I would go with the King of Rio.
Yeah, you said something nice about Jose Aldo. How about that? Lionheart the UFC loves him. He always gets these main event and fight nights. He finds himself again. He's not the co-main, but he's the third up at UFC 301. I don't know what Anthony Smith, and I love Anthony Smith, and he came on the show also, a friend of this. At this point, we've had pretty much everybody on. Remember how chill he was? He was just chilling out. He was chilling.
He was the backup fighter.
He's what? Oh yeah, he's the backup fighter for what was that? What fight was that?
Must have been like Jamal Hill versus somebody,
was
I
a
think, because I
Jamal
think we
Hill
had Jamal
fight.
Hill that.
It was a Jamal Hill fight. Anyway,
It might have been
for you.
Jamal Hill versus Glover, I think.
That was it.
Guess.
Yep. That was it. No need to guess. You got it right. That's Brendan Tobin on the Sports Machine, Sean Levine. Also, Derek Lewis fight coming up in a few weeks in St. Louis. And I know it because I'll be there. On the other side, we got to talk a little boxing. We got a big one. Devin the Dream Haney versus King Ryan Garcia right here on the BetQL Network.
We're back with more Tapped Out with Brendan Tobin and Sean Levine on the BetQL Network.
Very excited to talk to our next guest, Miami's own Jorge Gamebred Masvidal. He is going to be boxing Nate Diaz June 1st live on pay-per-view. He's in the middle of a press tour. Now, Miami, he will be there Wednesday, Bayside at Pier 5. Jorge, when's the last time Jorge Masvidal has been to Bayside? Have you? It's not typically a place Miamians go. It's very big a tourist trap. It's been redone. When's the last time you perused Bayside?
Probably when I took my kids out. I think that's the last memory I got. Probably took them out to do like some shopping or eating around there. But I think that's the last time I went there, maybe like 2-3 years ago with the kiddies. You know, as you said, it's not like a place where Miami's a lot usually go to, because we've been there since we were like little and stuff, you know. So I mean, it's a cool mall, it's a cool spot, and for the Wayne's gonna be sick with the backdrop and everything. But yeah, I don't go to Bayside too much.
They have refurbished it. I've been there for a few.
It's so packed, you know. It's just nonstop traffic, man.
Yeah, the traffic's crazy, but I will say it's a lot prettier now. Like they redid the whole thing. I've been there before a couple Heat games now, so it should look cool.
When I was going, it was looking like not the greatest place when I was chilling, bro.
How has this been, man? How has the tour been for this Nate fight? Have you enjoyed this whole lead up for this fight?
You know, the problem with me is that I get like in fight mode, so I just want to train, sleep, recover, train, and so it takes a lot to diffuse and for the dog to get his thing centered. You know, to do Zoom interviews and things like that is cool, but to like travel and actually like put my training secondhand and for an extended period of time, it's not like a day or two, it's for like a whole week. You know, part of me is like, oh, but I understand the game. I'm here to sell pay-per-views. I'm not doing anything else but selling pay-per-views, so I got to get the word out there. I'm fighting and I'm ready to compete and I'm in great shape, and I'm pissed off and I want to hurt somebody now. Somebody's Nate Diaz. So I understand that process very well, man. Do I want to be doing it? Nah, I'd rather be at home, eat some sushi, playing dominoes and shit like that, training, getting ready to go train, shit like that.
What it felt like, because your BMF fight with him was so organic. You guys were both at like the heights. Everybody loved it. You guys just wanted to go there square off. it feels like there's a little bit more hostility this time around. Why is that? Why do you feel like you want to pummel him even more this time?
Well, one for starters, he tasted my foot, and I heard people not liking that too much. I didn't taste any of his shots. I dropped him 3 times in the fight. And I busted his face up. So I get it. He was sour about that, but then he made comments he probably shouldn't have in my book, calling me a coward, calling me a quitter. Like, oh man, that shit bothered me because I never said a damn thing about him. Just praise and respect, which I still got a lot of praise and respect from everything he's done in the sport, the way he's carried himself, the type of fighter that he is. I have a lot of respect for him. But when you say those things, it's like, oh, you don't got to do that, especially to call somebody like me a quitter when I've never in my life tapped. I got 50-something fights. I've never tapped. I've had the option to tap. You could imagine how many times I've been in that scenario where somebody was close with a submission. I've never tapped. I'd rather just go to sleep if I can't get out this bitch rather than tap to another man. So for him to call me a quitter, I was like, man, you stupid because you've actually tapped, motherfucker. So no biggie, we're just settled in the ring.
How have you enjoyed just training boxing? Has that been weird for you? I mean, you're a guy who your kicks have always been a big part of the game. We know you have the famous knee. So is it refreshing to train something like this? Is it a little frustrating? How is just training with your hands?
The abuse on your body that you take in MMA is like no other sport. There's not comparable. Not football, not any sport that you can think of, except maybe Muay Thai. There's no sport that really encompasses MMA and the regiment that is involved in MMA to get you up to speed. It's just different, man. It takes a toll on your body. So no diss to the boxing because the boxing is still incredibly tough and it's not really a game or sport. It's life or death in boxing. But the amount of wear and tear on the body is a lot less, So I'm enjoying it, man. I'm enjoying the process. Out of all the martial arts, the one that's always come the most natural to me has always been the hand, where I could always make leaps and bounds of improvements in boxing, whereas in wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and things like that, it had to take me a long, long time to really master and understand the principles of it, not just be able to do it, but understand how it works, So I've always felt that I could transition well into boxing, and so far I've transitioned amazing into the boxing for what my coaches expect from me and want out of me right now, what I've been giving them and showing them. They're very happy with the progress. So I would say that I can't say that it's been a great transition because I haven't competed yet, but for everything that's on the task sheet, I've accomplished it.
Jorge Masvidal is going to be fighting Nate Diaz live on pay-per-view June 1st. They will have their media tour hitting Bayside Wednesday. 6:30 is the press conference there. If you want to go see Miami's own in person, square off with Nate Diaz before they get it on June 1st. I've been seeing some things perusing around the internet, Jorge. Are you getting the itch again to fight in UFC? Is that a possibility that – because, you seem pretty content with retirement. You were doing your promotion game and all that with Game Bread. How close or give me the percentage of what the chances are we would see Jorge Masvidal back in the UFC?
Very good. Part of the deal was that I go do these 3 boxing matches and I come back to the UFC and give them a fight, So I don't know when that exactly will take place because I do have these 3 fights to do and then we'll handle that. But MMA is I always knew even when I retired that MMA is the funnest thing I've done ever in my life. Uncomparable drug, everything, every experience I've had in life, MMA is just different. It's so unique and beautiful. And the preparation, getting ready for it, then the walkout, and then when you're in that cage, I just love everything about the sport, So I knew I had to come back, and more than anything, I had to come back and get a W. I can't leave on an L. It's not me, I'm not leaving on the L. So I knew that I'd come back. When this boxing opportunity came back, it just sped all that up. Yeah, I'm going to be back in there and in the best shape of my life when I return.
How much did that itch come from seeing UFC 299 down here, man? Because you brought it back after 20 years of not coming to Dade. Now this is the spot, and that atmosphere was crazy. It was fun, but that doesn't happen without you doing it a year beforehand. So was there a part of you that missed it of not being on that card?
Yeah, big time, brother. Man. A big part of me was man, I wish I could have found this car. And the other big part of me was it wasn't meant to be, Too many outside factors. I wasn't in the type of shape I should have been in to even consider taking a fight like that. So, it was very conflicted. But I'll tell you what, Hopefully I get to fight in the UFC for the UFC in Miami some point in the future. I'm not putting a date on that, but I would just like to give my city a major, huge win, the way they deserve it,
Your guy Dustin Poirier, though, he put on a hell of a show on that night. I'm sure you weren't surprised by that performance, but Dustin doing what he's doing when people were writing him off. That how crazy did you find that he was that big of an underdog, and then for him to go, have a performance like that? Just how impressed were you with him?
I just knew it. Like I swear, I it's different because I'm like blood, sweat, and tears with these guys. I'm not some fan of the sport that doesn't train with these guys or never met them or seen them. Like I'm in there with these guys. I watch the preparation. I watch. I assess him as like an athlete, his speed, his power, how he's doing with the young guys that we're bringing up to push him and stuff like that. And I'm just always rooting for these guys, rooting for Kayla, rooting for. We just went 7-0 between Friday and Saturday. That blows my mind. 4-0 at UFC 300. The night before that was at PFL 8-0. I'm sorry, 8-0. We just went. Had Bone Nickel, we had Arman, we had freaking Kayla, we had Moicano. Like this is some numbers, man. This is crazy. To go 4-0 at UFC 300 when they're getting faced with the best opposition that they could possibly fight, and for us to come out on top like that, it just speaks of the team and what we got going down there. It's special, man. It's a very small club. It's not the easiest club to get into, but man, do we go to bat for each other, show up to work for each other, to push each other. And it's been like that since I started. And, numerous other guys are carrying that torch now and that tradition, and it's not going to change. It's just going to keep attracting that same type of individual that likes that, that wants to get after it and give it all you got. And if you don't win, it doesn't matter. Then you come back on your shield, because we're going for the jugular every time. And we bring those same type of characters out. You look at a lot of the qualities I have, it's the same qualities that Dustin has, that no quit in them at no time. Doesn't matter if we're winning or losing. If everybody in the world wrote me off, doesn't matter, And, I say it with a badge of honor. I'm so proud to be a part of American Top Team every time I get a chance to mention it.
What did you think that after Kayla's win, the GOAT, Amanda seemed like she got the itch to maybe square off with her one day. How do you think that would go?
Huge fan of Amanda as well, as everybody knows. I've always been cheering for her, preaching about her. I think she's an absolute beast, man. One of the best to ever do it. But it's such an interesting contrast because as much as she's a beast on the feet, Kayla is a animal she just happens to be a gorilla wearing clothing, but she's another gorilla when it hits the ground, or even once they clinch up, she's got devastating knees, elbows, and she can take just about any takedown in the planet, Shout out also to Holly Holm, because for her to take Kayla like that at her in her stage in her career, it's like she's such a competitor, such a dog. I'm a huge Holly Holm fan as well. And if you ask me right now, because probably the next question is who I put my money on, right now I would put my money on Kayla, to beat Amanda. I really think I've been telling everybody, when that girl comes over to the UFC, she's going to bust out through the division, and she is. She's just going to bust out through the division. It's just going to happen. She's going to slice up everybody. Then her and Amanda are going to fight, and that's going to be the biggest fight in women's history possibly when that goes down.
I remember after Dustin beat Max Holloway for the interim championship, I got a chance to talk to you about that. And you were like, it's almost as good as a championship because he beat Max Holloway. So I know that's a guy you have a lot of respect for. What was your reaction to that ending that he had this past weekend? I mean, it took over the internet.
Not just the internet. It's everybody at the arena just sucked their soul out. It just, man, Max is Max, bro. I got so much praise for that guy. Forget about this fight. Just Max, win or lose on that fight, still one of my favorite fighters of all time. His spirit, his ability to keep getting better with the sport and growing with the sport. And then, my favorite quality of Max, the dog in him, And then he displayed it with 10 seconds to go, up 4 rounds to 1. Doesn't need to prove or show anybody anything. And he goes, all right, let's gamble it up. Let's go. I'm going to let you get some shots and come on, let's go. Let's find out right here, right now. And he does that. It's just a testament to what a gangster motherfucker is and how blessed he is, because he's truly an icon, a gem for our sport, man. I feel that this is one of the best fighters we have, and he's everybody's favorite fighter, and he's also fighters' favorite fighters. So nothing but respect for Max, man, and to do it like that, one BMF has the quickest knockout in history, and one BMF has the latest knockout in hit, like 4:59. It's crazy, man. Like literally, he hit him and the bell rung. It was the craziest shit ever, man.
Jorge Masvidal taking on Nate Diaz live on pay-per-view June 1st. Go buy it on pay-per-view. Miami, if you want to come out tonight at 6:30, it's going to be at the Bayside Marketplace, New Bayside. You'll see them square off as they get in their press tour on. It should be absolutely fantastic. What do you want to prove to yourself, Jorge, in this boxing match with Nate?
Prove to myself, I wouldn't say to myself, because I ain't got nothing to prove to myself, really. But just go out there and compete, put my mind, put my body, my spirit. Sorry, man. Long nights, early mornings.
I get you.
Just up in the right mindset to compete, to do what I've done. And it's a process to get here. It just doesn't happen overnight. Hey, I want to fight, There's a process from the physical side, from my team side, getting me ready, from all the deals that we have to do, all the stuff. It takes a lot, but I love it to be on the stage. I love to compete. Boxing's the first sport I fell in love with. When I found it around 7, 8 years old, I was like, what the is this? Loved it, and then I was instantly warped into boxing. And then I discovered MMA a couple years later when I'm like 11, 12 years old. And then I fell in love with that, so, and I pledged my life to it for the next 20 years. So I'm glad to be doing something like going into boxing now with all the skill, all the knowledge, all the experience that I have now. And it's against a great, formidable opponent that we happen to have some history with, that he thinks is unfinished, so I don't mind knocking several birds down with one stone, And your boy's getting handsomely rewarded for his talents as well,
And well-deserved, man. All the best to you. Have a safe trip back down here and all over through your tour, man, and have a healthy camp, all right?
Yes, sir, and thank God, first and foremost, Jesus, for putting me in these situations to be able to take advantage of them. Thank you, all the listeners. Thank you, all the fans. Thank you, all the haters. And thank you, Dade County.
Jorge Masvidal, all the best, man. Take care.
Thank you, brother.
We're back with more Tapped Out with Brendan Tobin and Sean Levine on the BetQL Network.
Appreciate you checking us out this Saturday night, wrapping things up here on the BetQL Network, where we talk some fighting. We've talked a lot of UFC because UFC 300 was last Saturday night. And now time to talk a little bit of boxing. That's Brendan Tobin. I'm the sports machine, Sean Levine. And this is a fight that we've been talking about now for a while, finally here. King Ryan Garcia, a big underdog at BetMGM. I'm talking about a plus 500 against Devin the Dream Haney at minus 700. Before we get too far into the weeds, who we think is going to win, how they're going to win, are these odds right? Ryan Garcia is that big of a dog?
I think they're probably right, man. I mean, like, there's a couple of things that have been a concern here, right? It's like, first of all, Ryan Garcia stepped up in competition against Gervonta Davis a fight ago, and it wasn't very close. Gervonta Davis wiped the floor with him. The difference here, Devin Haney doesn't have near the knockout power that Gervonta Davis does, but he is probably as skilled a boxer from this like 135, 140 region. Guy is so pristine. He won't knock you out. I mean, he doesn't knock anybody out, but he's as skilled as it gets, just as far as the sweet science is concerned. So knowing the holes in Ryan Garcia's game, I think everybody just looks at it and been like, well, let's be real about it. We're talking about legitimately just a puncher's chance. And everybody kind of looks at him as a one-trick pony. And if you're a one-trick pony going up against Devin Haney, he's probably going to take away that weapon. And unless he feels a little froggy, a la like he did like against Jorge Linares or a little bit against Vasily Lomachenko, unless he decides to maybe push the aggression, there's not going to be those opportunities there for Ryan Garcia to get the win.
I bought into the Ryan Garcia hype, him hitting that Cobra bag and the speed bag and the YouTube videos and the shirt off the ads and all those things. And then, like you said, I saw his last fight against Gervonta Davis, who beats everybody, and it wasn't close. I'm a little bit surprised that his next fight is against such a big name, such a experienced fighter in Devin Haney, and there wasn't a bit of a tune-up fight or two in between. Also, because let's just call it what it is, I don't know Ryan Garcia personally, but he seems to be having a little bit of Conor McGregor issues outside the octagon. If you know what I'm saying, like it's not just fighting on his mind. Clearly, there's some other stuff going on.
It's the big mystery surrounding all of this with him is because I think in some ways, we remember back to Conor McGregor. You mentioned him, right? One of the things that was brilliant about him is just how vicious he was in the lead up to the Jose Aldo fight. He pulled no punches. He acted and got Jose Aldo, who I think we would say has probably got a more well-rounded skill set than Conor McGregor, but he baited him into a big mistake. You got to think like the mentioning of families, the way he's acted on this tour, the social media behavior, the leaking of stuff, just genuinely like trying to mess with Devin Haney if he's going to get to the fight. I think all of that there's got to be some gamesmanship to it, but then also you wonder with Ryan Garcia, who has been open about the mental struggles that he's had and stardom and how it's kind of swallowed him up and the back and forths he's had with Oscar De La Hoya. I mean, it is odd seeing Oscar De La Hoya as like his promoter and all this too.
I don't know that that's the guy you want leading your career. I mean, just say it. Throwing that out there.
And it doesn't seem like he does want him leading his career either, but he is for right now. And I think that it's tough to know what's wrestling and what's legit that you should be concerned about because you want to be sensitive to this stuff, but then you also wonder like, what is he using to get everybody to buy pay-per-views and tune in? Because he is a master at that. You mentioned the Cobra bag thing. This is legitimately like the first boxing star of this generation. And I can call him that because him and Gervonta Davis did huge business. People who aren't boxing fans were into that fight. It did over 1 million pay-per-view buys in boxing. That's very rare these days. He is a star fighter built on Instagram, but we don't know necessarily how good he is compared to the other elite guys in that division. And so with Devin Haney, the question really is like, is Devin Haney going to pretty much, if you're going to bet this fight, where can you really make your money? You could probably load up on him. Yeah, you could probably load up on him by decision, which is a better, number than the minus 800 that he is right now. and you can get it at like minus 135 for him to win on the scorecards. Hey, that's what he does. He is a scorecard winner. He has won his last, 8 fights via unanimous decision. A lot of them haven't really even been close. I mean, the last fight against Regis Prograis, who everybody really liked as the last champion at 140, he wiped the floor with him. Wasn't even close. Regis Prograis, who's a very aggressive, also a dangerous puncher, he wanted no piece of Devin Haney in this fight from like round 2 on. He was done with him. But the one thing I'll say, Sean, with Devin, there have been fights where, he's felt a little bit froggy. He's wanted to maybe be a little bit more exciting, and he's gotten clipped. He's put himself in some spots. Vasily Lomachenko, even some people thought maybe Lomachenko should have won that fight. The Linares fight always comes to mind because he got clipped at the end of that fight. That was a few years back. So that's really where, like, if you're going to throw something on Ryan, because he is a devastating power puncher, could you sprinkle a little something on a puncher's chance on him? Maybe, if you want to, just like have a little fun and just say, hey, over 12 rounds, maybe he catches him with something. What's the harm in that? You throw a 10-ski on it, you're going to get really great odds on it. I mean, him right now by KO is plus 850. I mean, what's the harm in thinking that he could get that done? But you might feel very foolish 3 rounds in and be like, he's never going to get touched.
So it sounds like what you're saying to me, Brendan Tobin, Sports Machine, Sean Levine here on the BetQL Network. Sounds to me what you're saying is, if I want my best chance to actually make some money, and that's usually what we like to do here as gamblers, Devin Haney by decision makes the most sense right now. Now you got to pay whatever, minus 135, minus 150 by fight night. You said earlier, to quote you, that Devin Haney doesn't knock out anybody. So it sounds like I'd be wasting my money if I played that plus 160. But if I just want to have some fun during the fight, maybe I don't have a big bankroll, put it on King Ryan Garcia, because those odds for him by knockout, obviously he does have the knockout power. Everybody knows that. You can get him to knock out Haney at plus 850. You can get Ryan Garcia right now, if it goes to the cards to win, at 16-1. What I'm telling you is, you might as well put some money on Ryan Garcia. Even if you don't think he's going to win, just to have some fun. The odds are great.
Yeah, the odds are really good. And then the odds for, like, the other thing that's weird about this fight, when I went to go by, I'm like, man, Devin Haney doesn't knock anybody out, but I thought back to Ryan's loss to Gervonta, and, he definitely showed a weakness to getting hit in the body, and I think that's something that Devin Haney could expose, but, like,
that's the thing people always forget, real quick, to cut you off, about knockouts. We always think, all right, you got to take the guy's head off. You got to find his chin. That's not what happened the last time for Ryan Garcia, right? He took that liver shot, and then he was just done. Went down to a knee. That was it.
So when I first looked at the odds of this, I was like, I think I'm going to sprinkle something on Devin Haney by knockout, because I was thinking to myself, he doesn't knock anybody out. I thought the odds when I opened up my betting apps was going to be like, oh, I'm going to get him like 5-1. And I think he could probably find the weakness. And then when I saw it was like plus 160, I was like, not even 2-1 for him to win by knockout for a guy who hasn't got a knockout in 5 years? That's kind of crazy to me. So I guess everybody kind of probably thought on that early and hopped on that bandwagon. But I was a little surprised. So, yeah, I would take Devin Haney by decision. It's not sexy. It's what he does. And then if you want to throw just a funsies on Ryan Garcia by knockout, I mean, that's really the only shot he's got to win. Him winning by decision is plus 1,600. That's not going to happen.
If Devin Haney does win like he's supposed to right now, BetMGM has him, like we keep talking about, as a lopsided minus 700 favorite against Ryan Garcia. Would his next fight be against Gervonta Davis?
It's a good question. They've had their back and forths publicly. I think the thing that's great about Devin is Devin doesn't tie himself to promoters. So he really does move freely how he wants to. So if he weren't to fight Gervonta Davis, doesn't really feel like a Devin Haney problem. I mean, that probably is Gervonta Davis's crew avoiding him because he is just that skilled. I think Devin is just schooling everybody from a boxing perspective. But man, I mean, you look at his strength of schedule, Linares, Jojo Diaz, George Ferocious Kambosos, who beat Teofimo Lopez. He waxed the floor with him, beat Lomachenko, embarrassed Regis Prograis. And this is all before the age of 26 years old. That's an impressive resume for that young man. So if he wants to fight Gervonta Davis, there's almost an element like he can't look too dominant. That's the kind of silly thing about this. It's like he's got to show Gervonta, hey, the guy that you beat, you know, that there's some chink in the armor. But then, you know, to be on the flip side of that, I think Gervonta's probably going to be watching with a keen eye and be like, can you finish? Because you don't finish anybody. Can you finish the guy that I finished? Because I finished him. Can you finish him? Because I think for right now, if you were to ask people like, hey, who's the man in this 135, 140 range? I think fame-wise, it's Tank. Tank is the more famous fighter. He's got the flash. He's the guy all the stars tweet about. But who's the better boxer? I think probably Devin has the better skill set, even though I think Gervonta's is a little bit underrated. He doesn't fight the gauntlet, and not even close, that Devin Haney has.
And from King Ryan Garcia's side, weird because how old is he, BT? He's young. He's like 25 years old, right? We're talking
He's
about
young
back-to-back
too, yeah.
fights against two of the biggest names in the sport right now. His next fight would be against a lesser name for lesser money. Maybe he just goes away for a little while, gets everything right. I don't know if he decides to stick with Oscar De La Hoya after this fight. But the flip side of that is if he wins, then he's still that superstar that we've been building him about to be for the last handful of years. So what I'm telling you is that's a lot of pressure on Ryan Garcia on Saturday night, man. Like a lot of pressure. You're either still the dude or you're pretty much done.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, he'll have his fans, but like, you don't want to become like the next Adrian Broner, right? Like, you're just there for your name, but nobody thinks you can really win.
Precisely. All right, that's it for the show. That was a fun one. 2 hours flying by. Appreciate Jorge Masvidal for joining the show. Thank you to our producer, Jake Noaker. For my co-host, Brendan Tobin, I'm merely the sports machine, Sean Levine. We'll talk to you next Saturday night right here on the BetQL Network. Good night.